All right, welcome to episode 65 of the At Bat podcast presented by War Media, where we give you our thoughts on the latest Chicago baseball news, as well as take a trip around the league. I am Saul Rodriguez, joined by my co-host today, Gabriel Wilkins, who of course you've seen on War Media's Open Run. How we doing, Gabe?
I'm doing well, man. I can't complain. Always a pleasure and a blessing to be able to talk baseball with you. So I definitely got a lot to talk about. As we know, it's been a lot of changes on the south side and on the north side. They doing their thing, winning some big time games. They got some more big time games left to come to see whether or not they're gonna play for this National League Central or this National League wild card race.
No, of course, yeah, man. We'll get into that, and I do want to get your thoughts, of course, as you weren't on last week's episode. I want to get your thoughts on the whole Chris Getz, promotion, the Jerry Reinsdorf comments, because I know we're talking about that off air, and as well, we'll get into the Cubs as well as their season high 12 games over 500, and as well as around the league. Definitely want to get into the Astros Rangers series. Want to talk a little bit about the Marlins situation with Alcantara going on the IL. So we'll get into all that. But first, we'll start off with the White Sox, though, because I do want to get your thoughts off the top. We didn't get it from last week. What were your thoughts with the promotion of Chris Getz, as well as some of those Jerry Reinsdorf comments? Because I know you had something to say when it came to the Jerry Reinsdorf press conference.
Well, as far as the hiring of Chris Getz goes, it's the traditional White Sox way. I wasn't totally surprised, but I was surprised by the fact that he did it within 8 days after firing Kenny Williams and Rick Hahn. I just felt like there was no due diligence being done. And that's the only issue that I had with it. If you had did a thorough search, a thorough month-long search, where you had interviewed over 20 plus candidates, and if you were Jerry Reinsdorf and you was able to get a panel full of colleagues within the game, be it past and recent executives to help you out through this search, I might have been able to live with it. But the fact that you didn't do your due diligence, it leads me to wonder, how can things change if they still remain the same in regards to how you go about finding candidates to replace the previous regime that once ruled the front office at 35th and Shields? I don't want to take anything away from Chris Getz, because Chris Getz has followed the traditional role into getting into a general manager seat. However, when you look at his background and you look at his track record and you compare it to so many of the other candidates that we discussed previously in the aftermath of them firing Kenny Williams and Rick Hahn, I mean, it don't stack up. It was a guy internally by the name of Sam Mondry Cohen, former Nats GM, who worked under Mike Rizzo, a guy that I thought the White Sox should have went after, who you could say had better qualifications than Chris Getz for the job. However, Chris Getz is, in effect, and I'm rooting for the guy because I know Saul, just looking at the fan reaction and everything, this was one of the most unfavorable hirings of a GM, I'd say, in Chicago sports history. And you see Chris Getz out here campaigning and going around, making his rounds, talking with local radio stations and whatnot. He knows he has his work cut out, not only to gain fan approval, but to gain fans' trust in regards to helping the White Sox see better days in the American League Central.
Yeah, and you're right in like the fan reaction, how it's been, and I definitely agree with you in the sense of like you're rooting for him. I get it. Trust me. Even if it was for my team, and even as disappointed as I could be with the way that they handled it, you have no choice but to root for the guy, right? Like it's like you don't want the team to fail, right? So you want them to
Absolutely.
succeed. And that's what I said. What I told Miles last week is that even though I don't think that Chris Getz necessarily was the right guy for the job, at the end of the day, I hope he proves people wrong, because then that would mean success for the White Sox. So, it's a lot. There's a lot to be said. He obviously has a place in front office baseball. He knows his way around the White Sox organization, regardless of whether you want to talk about success or not. There's familiarity there, and of course that's a plus. So hopefully he's able to do something with what they have, as well as add pieces and all that. But the one thing I want to ask you as well was with the Jerry Reinsdorf comments, because we talked about it a little bit off air, but how he met, first of all, just going in there and showing his face. I don't necessarily know if it was a great idea, but then him going out there and talking and saying that the White Sox are not players for Shohei Ohtani. I mean, you're just adding salt to the wound there. But yeah, what were your thoughts on that press conferences and just his comments overall?
My thoughts on it was good to hear him speak for the first time in a long time, but at the same time, you also understand why he does not speak on a regular basis in front of the media. And his outdated ways of in regards to the way in which he sees the game, it shows. You talking about figures who have been dead for over a half a century that once ruled the game at a time in which the game was different. Player salaries were different. And I'm a smart enough man to know that the White Sox would not be in the running for Shohei Ohtani. But the fact that you go out there publicly and you state that just sends a bad message to your fans that don't even believe in you in the first place. The fans that are saying that you need to sell the team. Well, this is why they're saying it. And you got to understand your audience. Like I said, I'm not a dumb enough person to believe that the White Sox, even if they put all the money on the table, would be a major player for Shohei Ohtani. Mm-hmm. But the fact that you even speaking on a player's free agency before he even hits free agency, like that's crazy. And in my opinion, Jerry Reinsdorf should have been fined for saying that. He should have been, even if there's no rules, but like, because that's just crazy to me, man. But he just showed how outdated he is in regards to the way in which he sees the game. And this is why this franchise has kind of remained stuck in neutral and been unable to put the shift in the drive and go forward because of the way in which he sees things. But going back to Chris Getz, I mean, hopefully Jerry is able to give Chris some freedom and allow him to navigate and operate in the best way in which he sees fit to ensure that, like I said earlier, the White Sox are not only just a major player in the AL Central, but across Major League Baseball, and can restore some winning traditions alongside of pride when it comes to wearing black and white pinstripes on the South Side.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. With the Ohtani thing is that, yeah, obviously most White Sox fans, don't necessarily see them even trying to go for Ohtani. But yeah, just like I said, salt on the wound of a fan base that already feeling the effects of getting rid of their GM, their president, and then getting Chris Getz, whatever it is. Like, it's just bad timing. That's the way I saw it, and I was like, man. I don't necessarily think that was the right way of going with the conversation. So, yeah, hopefully, like I said, hopefully things work out for Chris Getz and able to turn this thing around. But yeah, on the field, the White Sox currently sit at 54 and 86. They've had, some of the things I wanted to point out. Obviously, there's a lot of things that are going wrong with this team, but overall, the play, you got guys like Elvis Andrus who had a big August, Lennon Sosa, who, it's a guy that deserves a lot of playing time there. What have you thought from the play? And Gabe, I see you on Twitter all the time. I know you're definitely a guy that focuses on all the positives because, like, what, even when there's a bunch of stuff going wrong, and trust me, I know, especially when, like, the past 2 years with the Cubs, like, even when, stuff's going wrong, there's always those guys that are playing their asses off that need some attention. But what have you thought from the last month or so for the White Sox, and what do you foresee, for the rest of 2023?
I mean, I try to focus on the positives, but I see a lot of negatives too. And
Yeah.
I'll call a spade when I see it. And while I have seen some positives, and I appreciate what Elvis Andrus has contributed over the last month, not only on the field, but also off the field, mentoring guys like Lenny Sosa, who, as you talked about, has been playing well and performing well thus far as of late since being called up from AAA Charlotte the second time this season. Seems like he's slowly but surely starting to figure some things out, and I know he's putting the work in regards to becoming a better infielder with White Sox third base coach Eddie Rodriguez, who prior to games warms him up and works him out. But the thing that has been cool to see is the development of Lenny Sosa and Oscar Colas, as well as Corey Lee, doing a good job behind the plate, trying to manage the pitching staff. Granted, he struggled at the plate a little bit, but we saw him come into his own the other night, hitting his first major league home run in the series against the Kansas City Royals in the second game of a 3-game series, as well as hitting a single. I think he had a 2-hit game. I believe that was his first multi-hit game in the White Sox uni, so that's pretty cool. But what I want to see is some veterans showing some fight too besides Elvis. It seems like when I watch this ball club some days that they packed it in, that they're just ready to, get out to Vegas or get some tee times in on the golf course. But like that's got to change, man. You want to finish the year strong. Like this team is on pace to lose 100 games. And while as a fan, I would take solace in them getting the top 3 pick from this season after going through what so many White Sox fans have gone through. I mean, you got to give this fan base something to look forward to in 2024. You got to give season ticket holders such as myself something to look forward to in 2024. But like I said, the young guys, they're playing because they know they're playing for jobs down the road. Some of these guys are playing for their career. But when I see this team, man, I see a team that some days they look like they've checked out. And one guy I will highlight, though, among the core, so to speak, is Yoan Moncada. He's been playing impressively over the last several games, the 2 weeks, but we need to see that more so consistently from Yoan Moncada, especially come next year, where he's going to be earning $25 million on the last year of his contract, seeking to re-up. And the only way he's going to be able to re-up is if he stays healthy and performs the way in which we've seen him do in the month of September more consistently.
Yeah, he's raking, man, 1202 OPS last 15 days. So he's definitely trying to give a great end to the season. And man, I'm right there with you because I think that's one of the most important things when it comes to like a team having a bad season is to finish strong. And I think no better example than the one on the north side last year. They finished strong in August and September. And it's showing now as they kind of brought that over from last year, even better. So yeah, I think it has a lot to do with also just setting an example too, right? Especially the veteran guys like a Moncada, for example. Look at him; he's playing better. A guy like Lennon Sosa will see that and say, "Hey, look, it doesn't matter what the record is. You don't pack it in." So, yeah, it's great to see those guys, making an impact and not booking their ticket just yet to Cabo or anything like that. So that's good to see. What's your opinion on the Garrett Crochet thing? He's trying to come back from his injury. From a shoulder injury. He's just starting his rehab assignment. Is that one of those things where, should they have just, because I know there was, they thought about shutting him down before. They mentioned shutting him down before, but I guess he's going to try to, make a run in these last 3 weeks to, get some innings in. What is your opinion on that? Do you think they should have just waited it out, or do you like that he's trying to come back this year?
Well, my question in regards to his comeback is this. It's only like a couple of weeks left of Double-A ball, which is where he's been stationed at in Birmingham. And I saw him in his debut from the comeback where he went 3 up and 3 down and looked really impressive. But I don't mind that because he's been shut down for the last couple of months and he's had time to re-cooperate and get better. I don't mind him getting innings down in the minors. My question when it comes to Garrett Crochet is more so geared toward next year. And my question is he going to be a guy that you look to shore up innings for you in the bullpen? Or are you possibly going to seek to convert him into being a full-time starter? I don't think Garrett Crochet could be a full-time starter in this league unless if you keep him to start the season down in the minors. Because we got to think about something when it comes to Garrett Crochet. He was one of those draft picks that came around during the COVID year when there was no minor league baseball. And he had a lot of injury history and whatnot. And the White Sox brought him up right away as a reliever. He didn't really spend a lot of time in the minors. So I don't know what his long-term role is, but I don't mind him eating up innings or finding his way back surely but slowly through the minor league system, getting some run and bump in these rehab starts. That's going to be key for him, I feel like, because at least he's getting it going into the offseason with some level of confidence. And if it's anything where some flares up within a week or two, God forbid, and hopefully that doesn't happen for his case, you can just shut him down right away and be like, hey, let's just parlay into the offseason.
Yeah, I agree, and I think yeah, if he's able to make it back, I guess it does a lot for him mentally. I'm sure because I think that's what a lot of players try to come back late in the season, right? Because it's a mental thing. It's it's just stepping on the field again, so that you feel like, hey, in 2023 you accomplished something, even if it wasn't 80 strikeouts or whatever for a reliever, or 200 innings for a starter, 150, whatever it is. So yeah, it's good to see him trying to get out there because I think he's an important part for the White Sox. I feel like ever since guys have been departing and all that, he's just rising in the ranks of just importance for this organization. So hopefully, I mean, we've seen all the talent. He has all the talent in the world to be, whether it be a starter or a reliever, whatever they want to do with him. Hopefully, I think as a starter, I think would be even better, especially right now with the White Sox needs and all that. So the last thing I want to ask you too about was something I asked Miles last week because it was I think a topic of conversation when talking about Kopech and the remainder, the remaining, couple months of the season earlier in the summer. But do you think you still believe that Michael Kopech is a starter as of right now, or if you were a manager, would you consider at least trying him in the bullpen just to see, how he reacts, how he plays out, stuff like that? Because it looks like, I mean, just by the numbers at least, I mean, you see more of his stuff, but just from the numbers, it has gotten worse, I think, over the course of the year as first starter in Kopech. Do you believe that he still has a lot to prove as a starter, or is it maybe time to maybe start experimenting?
You know what? That's my number one question going into the offseason when I look at the pitchers on this roster. Honest to God. I've been trying to think thoroughly about what is Gary Crochet's role on this team, and definitely
Mhm.
what is Michael Kopech's role on this team. Michael Kopech is a fascinating case study, man. Because in the middle of May, this dude was looking like he was on the verge of becoming one of the top 5 pitchers in the game. This guy, when he keeps his walk rate down, is a guy who could easily go 5, 6 strong without allowing a hit. But he gets into trouble by way of losing his command, being unable to find the strike zone, and before you know it, he's thrown like 8 balls in a row and walked a couple guys. And I saw his last start, and it looks like a mental thing, in my opinion. Me personally, I feel like you just got to keep all options on the table with him
Mhm.
because he has the type of stuff where it can be electric enough for him to be a high quality setup man or a closer in this league someday. And he wouldn't be the first guy to have troubles as a starting pitcher and get moved into the bullpen, which has worked for a few guys that ended up in the Hall of Fame, such as a Dennis Eckersley and a Mariano Rivera. So when I look at Michael Kopech, man, if you notice, he was supposed to start in game 2 of the 3-game series coming up against Detroit, but the White Sox haven't unveiled a starter yet for game 2 of that series. And a lot of people believe it's going to be Luis Patino. I do feel at some point that Michael Kopech could be a guy that gets moved to the bullpen should things not work out. But because when I watch him, just confidence wise, he doesn't have it. And Michael's a rhythm pitcher. When he's finding that zone and he's able to put the ball where he wants and he's not tipping pitches or getting too cute with pitches and walking guys, he looks like a guy that could easily find his way as a starter. But if you're going to keep walking guys as a starter and allowing those guys that you walk to go across the plate because you're not able to keep your command, you got to consider a role for him in the bullpen at this point. And it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world because with Liam Hendricks being down until September of next year due to getting Tommy John surgery, you don't really know who your closer is going into 2024.
Mhm.
Do you really trust Gregory Santos to be your closer, who hasn't fared well in some stretches when he's been presented with the ball in the ninth inning, as great as he's been for the majority of this season? Like, you don't even know who your closer is going to be next year. Why not give Kopech the ball in the ninth inning and see what he could do, especially with a fastball as electric as his is?
Yeah, and not to mention, adding, a couple miles per hour would be insane already because of how hard he throws. And yeah, I think the way I've always thought about it with him because, and I got the receipts to prove it. Not to say that I'm right about anything just yet, but I've said before that Kopech would be, you know, if he became, I think I might have said like 2021, so I was way too, or it was like in 2017 or 2018. I don't know when the hell it was.
Mhm.
I was early. I jumped the gun, but point being, I said that he would be an elite bullpen guy, bullpen arm in baseball one day, and I think I definitely think he can be. So I think it's one of those things where with him, he's got the velocity, he's got the whiff rate. I think that he's had a higher whiff rate past years, obviously, but he still has great stuff with great movement. That I think that if you put it in the bullpen, it would just be nasty. So that's one thing. That's one of the reasons, and I think that's why I thought that it would be a great time right now to experiment and try that. But it looks like Pedro Grifol is not even considering. He said he's going to remain in the starting rotation. So,
He
yeah,
said that, but
yeah,
but like I said,
uh-huh.
game 2 of the Detroit series,
Yeah.
Kopech is the projected starter, and they're
Oh, okay.
releasing that as a to be announced. And it's a possibility that they might push his start back, or we may not even see him the rest of this year. No one knows
Hmm.
whether or not we're gonna see Michael Kopech for the rest of the season. And if we do see him, we don't know what his role might be, because I truly believe that Michael Kopech is not starting on Saturday against Detroit. And that does mean something. And anytime
Hmm.
you got Chris Getz basically saying through Pedro Gaffar that we're going to keep all options open, at this point, I feel like everything's on the table. And I understand why you see him as a bullpen guy too, Saul, because
Hmm.
think about the way he performed in 2021 out of the bullpen.
Yep.
He was a spot starter in certain situations, and he was also a guy that ate up a lot of innings for guys that weren't able to go 5 or 6 innings in the starting rotation or struggle sometimes, such as a Dylan Cease or a Dallas Keuchel.
Oh, yeah, my fault. I actually did not see the what you're talking about. I just
Yeah.
saw it right now.
Mhm.
That said the White Sox are to be announced for Detroit, right? And then it says which suggests Kopech might pitch out of the bullpen. And then Grifol said we're still in the process of figuring that out. So, yeah, you're right. They're keeping all options on the table, fortunately. So it'd be really interesting to see, what they do with Kopech, because there's a lot of ways you can go with. Because I totally understand if I'm a GM or I'm a manager. I understand still wanting to, obviously this guy's not, 35. So like I understand trying to, see what you could do in the offseason and trying to, continue him as a starter. But it's still, it's getting to a point where like, why not, give it a shot and to be a shot in the arm for him and give him confidence, because a guy like him can be electric and that would be great for his confidence. Hopefully they figure it out and they're able to, put him in the right spot for just,
Absolutely.
to succeed. But they have three at Detroit again, and then they take on the Kansas City Royals over the next week. So hopefully they can find some wins against Kerry Carpenter and the Tigers, man. I mean, they're just as annoying and pesky as it gets. I know as a Cubs fan seeing that myself. Yeah, so that'll be a good matchup again. But we'll move on to the Cubs, who are 76 and 64. Like I said, season high, 12 games over 500. For Gabe, from the other side so far, the past couple of weeks, what have you thought about this team? I mean, they just keep finding ways to win. Even in the part of the schedule where it got a little harder. I mean, me and Miles talked about it last week that hey, the schedule is getting a little harder, but I said I do like the way the Cubs play against the teams with records like their own or whatever it is, because also you just feel you feel you don't feel too bad when they lose against you know I don't know, like a team that's in the contention, just because when you lose against like like a team like the Royals or whatever it is, it's just annoying because like you always think you should have had that, whatever it is, regardless of them having a guy like Bobby Witt. But in general, what have you thought about the Cubs in the last couple of weeks, and just how their overall play is has them a game and a half behind the Brewers?
Man, I've been impressed. I've been impressed. I see a ball club that's playing together. I see a ball club that when the money's on the line, guys are stepping up. Cody Bellinger, man, has been impressive throughout the month of September thus far. This is the guy that's been 11 for 29 at the plate, batting 379. Every time I'm watching games, it seems like he's hitting a big time home run in a key spot, and has been the main igniter of this offense. Seiya Suzuki is heated up. Had a timely home run to tie the ball game the other night against the San Francisco Giants. And then Chris Morrell, I see guys that are playing for one another. I see
Mhm.
guys that are playing a much better brand of baseball than what I've been seeing this year on the South Side, and I see a pitching staff where young guys that we talked about on the show over a month ago, potentially being caught up in the month of September, stepping up and showing out, such as Jordan Wicks. You know, I saw the numbers that you posted on your Twitter page the other day, Saul, and just watching his stuff, man. Every time he's going out there, he's giving you at least 5 innings. He's keeping it within 2 earned runs or less. And he's managing his workload fairly well for a young pitcher and has really stepped up mightily in the place of Drew Smiley in the starting rotation. And I'm pretty sure if you told some Cub fans that this would be a guy that you'd be banking on in the month of September through not only a division race, but a wild card race, most would have laughed at you. But now, you know, every time he takes the bump every fifth day, he's looking good and he's giving you a chance to win. And that's what you like to see. You talk about Jose Cuas coming out the bullpen, being electric. Albert Alzolay has been pretty good. You know, I look at the series against Cincinnati, even the 2 games they lost. You know, if the offense comes through on a couple of situations here and there, that could have easily been a sweep. But the one thing that I have been impressed with, like you said, when they come to play the teams that they need to beat, such as the Milwaukee's, the Cincinnati's, the San Francisco's, who have been in the thick of the wild card race, and they sweep them like it's nobody's business the last few days. Man, I have to tip my cap to them, and I'm interested to see just how far they can go. And for them to be going on this run in the absence of a Marcus Stroman. I mean, David Ross is looking like a guy who could easily lay claim to that National League Manager of the Year award, man, if this team keeps doing what they're doing.
Yeah, no, I agree with that for sure. He's going to be in the running for that. So I think, you mentioned Jordan Wicks, and yeah, I think that how we talked about him. I mean, he. A lot of people have said or compared him to maybe like a left-handed, Kyle Hendricks with his changeup because he leans so much in that changeup, and he's just been great. I mean, for real. I mean, compared to the earlier this season where Smiley was struggling and all that, like you know he's been a godsend to the rotation. So, hopefully he continues that. And the best part is that the competition has gradually gotten better for him. I mean, he's in his first 3 starts. He's pitched in 16 innings, just a little over 16 innings, 4 earned runs, struck out 13, and he's pitched against the Pirates. After seeing that start, I was like, okay, 9 strikeouts, all right. No disrespect to the Pirates, but I was like, I want to see him against better competition, see what's
Exactly.
up. The Reds, I was like, okay, here we go. It was a little bit of a test against, a young team, a young scrappy team. And, you could tell it was a little tougher. He struck out 3, but he gave up 1. And then, of course, against the Giants, I was like, okay, well, here we go. It's at Wrigley and it's a playoff atmosphere. And he got it done. I mean, he gave up 9 hits, but, only 2 earned runs. And against better competition, he was able to, hold his own. So great to see. I think for a team that, is looking for answers in the rotation, I mean, still the question, the one, as much as you don't want any questions in your rotation going down the stretch, the only one that remains right now is just Tyone, because he still continues to struggle. So hopefully he's able to find something just for just keep the last 3 starts, because obviously going into the playoffs, if they were to get there, you don't see Tyone being of any type of part of the rotation. So hopefully can give you a couple, just a couple more great starts. Hopefully you hold teams to 3-4 runs, whatever. But other than that, Javier Assad's continue to do his thing. That's great to see. And when you mentioned about the Red Series, man, I mean that was frustrating. The fact that they were could have easily swept that series, but I do agree with you with the fact that if the offense was played a little better, that they would have won that series. But hey, it is what it is. At least they were able to grind out that the 4th game to tie the series at 2. Fortunately, the Reds did take that season series, so that means if there is a tie, that the Reds would own that. As there's no more game, 163 that will be played. So, but a lot of people have said as well that they don't think the Reds will catch the Cubs. Not going to say that, of course, me myself.
You never know. You never
Yeah,
know. This
exactly.
has
You
been a
never know.
wild year.
Exactly. So I'm not going to say that myself. But yeah, it was definitely a frustrating series. The Reds are always pesky and they always get get the job done sometimes against the Cubs. So it was good to see the Cubs get that fourth one. But when you talk about the Giants series as well, I mean, I expected way more for the Giants. I know they went into losing 3 in a row, but I was like, oh man, like this is a great Giants team that the Cubs didn't get to face Kyle Harrison, but they did were able to face Logan Webb, and so but. And that was a great game, with him and Justin Steele facing off. So, credit to the Cubs for taking down the Giants. And it's one of those things too, where a lot of people were like, man, the Cubs just lay to bed the Giants because they're doing so bad right now that, some fans are just jumping ship right now, but they're still in the hunt. What do you think about the Giants? And like, you think they're kind of fading now, or are you still keeping hopes alive for those guys in the Bay?
Man, when I look at this wild card race right now, it's been up and down in the National League. I I hold out hope only if the Giants offense can wake up. If they can wake up, they have a chance. Their pitching staff, guys like Logan Webb that you mentioned, Alex Cobb, who almost threw a no-hitter at the
Mm-hmm.
top part of this month. If those guys keep doing what they're doing, they're gonna be in ball games, but the offense has to be better. And I think they've gone through a rough stretch because their offense has gone cold. And that's why they're 3-7 in their last 10 games, and they're on a 6-game losing streak right now. Now, if they don't get that together, then it's going to be a rough stretch for them. However, the one thing that they have that's a positive for them is I'm looking at the Giants' schedule is that they take on the Colorado Rockies at home for a 3-game set this upcoming weekend. If they can take care of business against that team, they can and make sure that they're taking advantage of beating the teams that they're supposed to beat, then maybe they could throw themselves back into the equation of being in the thick of that wild card race. But if they continue offensively to struggle like they have, then yeah, they're gonna be free falling out of that wild card race, and it's gonna be a long all season where they're gonna have nothing but things to think about on what could have been, and it's gonna force them to probably be even more of a major player in that Shohei Ohtani market.
Yeah, no, and you're right with the offense. They really needed more out of it. It was frustrating for them. I could totally just tell is just the fact that in game two they scored 8 runs and they gave up like a lot more. It was a bullpen game, of course, but the Cubs had that 6-run seventh inning. I think that that sparked them, and they weren't able to hold it. But JD Davis had a big game, and guys like that were having made great starts, but or had sorry, excuse me, had great games, but they weren't able to the pitching wasn't able to match it.
Right.
But yeah. So at least they're still in the running for sure. They still have an opportunity. But speaking of the offenses and stuff like that, last week there was conversation. The Cubs were like, "Man, this offense is cold." Against the Reds, they weren't playing that well either. Um, but it's just that's kind of how the offense has been. It's been a little streaky sometimes. And guys like Bellinger have been carried the team during those stretches. Like there's been games where the Cubs win 2-1, 3-0, and it's like 3 RBIs from Bellinger. So that just shows you how important the guy is. So it's one of those things where and even like as you said too, with guys are playing for each other. I thought of a guy like Christopher Morel, for example, who has struggled in the second half, but has had big moments. And I think that seeing guys like Bellinger, seeing guys like Swanson go out there, play elite defense. I think that helps the guy that's struggling, just keep on going, keep on going. Because I mean, even Dansby from the offensive side hasn't been as great, or like, I know he's been the best. I think he's been one of the best offensive shortstops when it comes to the guys that were signed in the offseason. But in general, I think that is kind of contagious. So in that case, I'd love to see Morel, and he's playing better in September already. So hopefully that continues to happen. One thing I wanted to get your opinion on too is the fact that they brought up Alexander Canario last week. We talked about it. Me and Miles were a little excited about that, talking about the possibilities of him playing whatever, and he has yet to see the field. He hasn't even had a pinch hit situation yet. And David Ross has talked about how he's going to play the guys that got them here, which I completely understand. But just to completely shut him like out of the picture is interesting to me. I know that he's not a top 100 prospect. I know he's not PCA. I know he's not all those guys. I get it, but really interested to hear your take because I know you're well into AAA and all the minor leagues and all that stuff. So I'm kind of curious as to what you take away from a guy like that because, or what a guy can take away from something like that because not getting any at bats, especially for a guy who came in one of the hottest guys in the Cubs system, or maybe in all of minor league baseball, because he had 12 straight games where he got on base. So, I wonder what that could do, but I'm sure he'll get his opportunity. There's still a few weeks to go. But what do you think about the situation?
I've been hearing a lot about that
Mm.
across Twitter lately, and I've been seeing a lot of Cub fans I know complaining about that. And even though I'm not familiar much with his game and I have to check out his highlights, I'm not a fan of calling guys up from the minors this time of the year and not making them part of the rotation. I feel like you gotta try him out at some point,
Mm.
even though I'm not aware of his game. Because in my opinion, when you do that, you're stunting guys' development. Yes, you can learn a lot watching the game up here in a major league uniform, sitting by the coaches and sitting by the players and talking about the game and the strategies and the tactics and all of that. But if you brought him up and you promoted him up to the show, give him a chance to rock out.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said before, and I said again, Saul, the Cubs are playing with house money right now. They in the thick of the division race. They in the thick of the wild card race. You brought Jordan Wicks up. You put him into your rotation. He's been impressive through his first 3 starts. Showed up and showed out in his Wrigley Field debut. Give Alex Canario a chance, man, and see what he's made of. I mean, it doesn't hurt you to do that. I understand being loyal to the guys that got you here. But it's going to be a day where maybe a guy need a day off. Plug him in the lineup and play him, man, and see what he can do. You never know. That guy could be the guy that ignites your offense even more alongside of the thumpers that you have, such as a Bellinger and Morel. And if you catch lightning in a bottle and get hot, you never know what can happen. So, in my opinion, I would hope that they do call his number, that David Ross seeks to call his number sometime soon, because there's no point in him being up here, especially with AAA season ending in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the one thing, like I said, I know that, this guy is not necessarily, going to be a superstar or whatever it is, but it's just kind of strange to pull up a guy and not, give him at least even a pinch hit situation in a week, because it's already been a week since he was called up. So
Right.
it's just something I never seen before. I don't think I've ever seen it before.
Me either.
So yeah, I mean, I know, yeah, like you said, Ross has talked about, they're gonna like keep the same guys in the rotation and all that. And I think he talked about also the fact that, he can learn a lot from this and all that. I get that for sure. But yeah, hopefully he's able to get his spots, because look, again, no disrespect to these guys, but guys like Miles Mastrobuoni's still getting at bats and Patrick Wisdom still getting at bats. I don't understand why you don't give Ganadio like that at bat. So, and the thing is, I know that a lot of fans out there, don't want Wisdom even on the roster. I don't know if I completely agree with that, because it's a guy that has, I think, really close to elite pop, but it just obviously doesn't, translate all the time because he strikes out a lot. But I still like that guy. I think he kind of, to me, he kind of showed how important he was in a game, for example, against the Brewers, where the Cubs had no offense going for him. It was 3-0. Then he goes up, I think it was 2-0 at the time, and he launches a solo homer. I think it just goes to show how important he is to just the roster in general, because at least you have a guy like him on there to maybe could spark the offense with a solo bomb, something that, a single can't do or whatever it is. So I do understand why he's still on the roster, because he slugs so much. So yeah, we'll see what he does for the rest of the season. But yeah, it's one of those things where I just want to see kind of a little more. But the Cubs do have Arizona for 4, so that's going to be really interesting. They're going to face Zach Gallen, Merrill Kelly, those guys at Wrigley this weekend. Going to be a big 4-game set, especially for the Diamondbacks, because this is another team that's chasing the Cubs in the wild card standing. They look a little better than the Giants, but even then they have regressed in the second half. So they're looking for, Corbin Carroll to hopefully they can get back into this race and be in the top 3.
Did you see who they brought up yesterday?
Oh yeah, the number 1 prospect, right?
Jordan
Yeah,
Lawler. And you
yeah,
might
Jordan
see
Lawler.
him. You might see him
Oh
make his
yeah,
major
we'll see
league
him.
debut in
Yeah,
this
yeah,
series, because I was kind of surprised that Arizona was doing that, but I'm pretty sure you will see him playing.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I think that goes to show, just like I said, that they've regressed in the second half. They want a spark. They need a spark. And I think they know Corbin Carroll can't do it all, and they, that they need something. I think that's a good guy to have. He's an outfielder, right?
No, he's a
Or no?
shortstop.
Shortstop.
He's a
Okay, my
shortstop,
fault.
and then
Yeah.
they're only a half a game behind Miami for that third wild card spot. So you know they're gonna
Hmm.
come in here
Oh
hungry and
yeah.
ready to go. And that's a team that I got a chance to watch last season when they came into Chicago and swept the Sox. They got some players that I like a lot: Christian Walker,
Yep.
Alec Thomas, Mount Carmel guy in
Hmm.
Chicago native who did big things on the Catholic League scene in both football and baseball. So I'm intrigued to see what they had to offer because that's a team that's very tough, young, and competitive. And if they get they back end of the starting rotation together, they're gonna make some noise in a couple of years.
Yeah, 100%. I think even next year they could be one of the powers in the NL if they add in the certain spots and they add guys there because you asked me, you add like an Aaron Nola into there, who knows, right? So
Dang,
just
yeah.
yeah, so we'll see what happens, but they're definitely a force coming up, and yeah, I mean you got guys like Christian Walker's been there for a minute and he just always hits bombs. So yeah, they're gonna be it's gonna be an interesting series against the Cubs to see what they could do. Then the Cubs go to Colorado. You mentioned, going at Colorado. They're going to be at Colorado. The Cubs will be there as well. So hopefully that we'll see how that goes offensively and see how the pitching, staff, because I think maybe either Wicks will pitch in that series or something like that. So we'll see how that goes because that'll be a good challenge for them. But moving on to the rest of the leagues that do before we go, we do want to talk a little bit about the Astros and Rangers faced off this weekend. Man, I mean that was ugly. When it comes to the Rangers side of things, and me and Miles mentioned it that they're just the Astros are always there, and you're just waiting for them to have a little like have a Thanos snap and just saying I'm inevitable because they all really are, and they just proved it again by sweeping the Rangers. It's just not even a sweep; they annihilated all three games, just smacked them around, and the Rangers offense hung around for a little bit in a couple of those games, but then they just couldn't keep it going, but. What are your thoughts first and foremost on the Astros? Because of course we are not surprised, but also on the Rangers not being able to hang around because they got Eovaldi back and you felt a little good about that, but then he started against the Rangers and got smacked around. So, what are your overall thoughts on both of these teams?
Man, if you Texas, you got a Boston ran on you, man. And
Yep.
I know there's some guys hanging out in that locker room like, yo, what happened?
Mm-hmm.
Because these dudes put up 13 on Monday, 14 on Tuesday, 12 on Wednesday, and then on Wednesday, Max Scherzer was out there.
Yep.
So you had your top two dogs in the starting rotation get robbed. And I like kudos to Houston. That's really all I have to say. This team, everybody, I know a lot of Astros fans, happened in the cover of Rockets basketball like several years ago. And a lot of people was questioning Dusty Baker and the way he set up his lineups. Why you playing Maldonado over Diaz? Plays Yanier Diaz, goes yard, hits a big home run, I believe on Monday. Altuve hitting 4 home runs and 4 consecutive at bats over a 2-day span with a 3-homer game. Chas McCormick, I mean, this dude came off the bench on Wednesday and he go yard for his 20th home run. It's just, like it just goes to show you how good hitting is contagious. And even Abreu connected on a pitch and had a
Mm-hmm.
double that almost that drove in an RBI last night. Because I caught the back end of that game last night. I just been impressed with the American League West, but I over the last couple years, but I'm sure as hell impressed with what Houston's doing. And Houston showed why they are the defending world champions. And if you're the Texas Rangers right now, you combine this with the fact that they teed off on your top 2 pitchers, and your bullpen still isn't good despite trading for a Aroldis Chapman, who you gave up Cole Reagans for. Oh, man, that might be one of them trades we look back at within the next 5-10 years. So like, who's Texas thinking about? Why didn't Texas invest in Cole Reagans, man, with the way he's pitching right now? But
Mm-hmm.
man, if I'm the Rangers right now, man, I'm not even in the playoffs.
Yep.
And that's what hurt. That's really what hurt. Like, This is the first time the Rangers ain't been in the thick of the playoff race since like mid-April.
Yeah, that's crazy. And that's when I looked
Yeah.
at that, I was like, that's surprising. And you're right about with Abreu, man. I mean, this dude hit a grand slam yesterday, and he
Yeah.
had two home runs. So yeah, I mean, they had everyone raking, and Michael Brantley hit one too. And yeah, it's
And he
really
just came
surprising.
back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I mean, that's just you're just adding more in there, which is like they don't even need it, and that's crazy. So yeah, that's it's and that's how we talked about it. I mean, I'm not like we mentioned it even when the Rangers were up 4 or 5 games. We were just like, hey, like we wouldn't be surprised if the Astros still come out on top because they just know when to turn it on, and it looks like they're doing it again at the right time. And it's just always how it is with these guys. So you can't count these guys out whatsoever. I know the Mariners got real hot, and they're still in playoff contention as well, but I don't see them as a division winner at all. So I think it'll either be the Astros or if somehow the Rangers, turn it on in the last couple of weeks. I doubt it though, but I just think the
I don't
Astros
want
is
to.
just
I
that
don't
good.
want. I don't want to count out Seattle. I definitely
Mm-hmm.
think the Astros is their division to lose.
Yeah,
When
yeah,
you
yeah.
when you the
Uh-huh.
defending champions and you put on a showing like they did,
Mm-hmm.
oh, they let it be known you're gonna have to take this thing. But Seattle's been playing. Julio Rodriguez just hit 2 home runs the other day in Cincinnati, man.
Mm-hmm.
Teoscar Hernandez is heating up. That pitching staff over there with Kirby, Castillo, and those guys, I'm not counting them out just yet. They definitely, even if they don't win the division, they're definitely getting a wild card spot. But man, like this division gonna come down in the last week of the season because I believe the Astros and the Mariners got a meeting coming up in a couple of weeks. That's gonna really play a key factor in who takes the West.
Oh yeah, I mean, definitely agree that you can't necessarily count them. I just think that I think if I had to bet, if I was a betting man, I'd probably go Astros over Mariners
Oh,
in
we
that
all would
division. Yeah, yeah,
if
yeah.
you're
So,
smart.
but yeah, no, yeah, but 100% going into a wild card. I don't even think anybody wants to go into a wild card series against the Mariners. I mean, we saw last year why against the Blue Jays. But yeah, going into it, I think they have this different kind of like, like we don't care what you think about us type thing. Like they're not a cute story anymore. They're going out there and winning ball games. And yeah, Julio's coming back and with vengeance. So, and you mentioned the Astros thing is that I was gonna look up right now that they're facing them and what their season series is because I think those games are gonna be big. Mariners are 8-2 against the Astros this year. So
That's why I
that's
said.
yeah. So
And even so, if they had already clinched the season series, so if
mhm.
they finish with identical records, Seattle got the division.
Yeah. So yeah, so they just got to keep it close, and they as it is right
Exactly.
now, one game. So they got to keep it close and see what happens. But I think they're a lock for a playoff spot. It just kind of depends on where they're going to make it, whether it be the wild card or the division.
For
But
sure.
it's probably gonna be the best race. In my opinion, I think it's gonna be the best race to finish the season is gonna be the AL West. I think those are three teams that are vying for the top spot, let alone a playoff spot. So I think it's gonna be the best race because I know the NL Central is exciting in the sense of the Cubs and the Brewers, maybe even the Reds wake up a little more. I get it, but I think it's not any competition to the AL
No,
West
that
whatsoever.
West is something else because
Oh
every
yeah,
every day is flip flopping, every week is flip flopping.
yeah,
This AL West is something else, and the Mariners really turned it into a party because I thought it was a 2-team race between Houston and Texas. But
yeah.
what the Mariners have done over the last month, and just seeing that team up close and personal, you realize why they are what they are because they came into Chicago and put up 14 runs without Julio Rodriguez. If that don't tell you nothing, I don't know what will.
Yeah, yeah. No, yeah, and still baffles me the fact that they were almost kind of a seller at the deadline, right? And trading Paul Sewald. They didn't trade all their chips, I know, but they traded, their closer Paul Sewald to the Diamondbacks, and and they still went off. So that's what's been the most fascinating part of the whole thing. And the last team I want to talk about is another team in the NL, which is the Miami Marlins. They're out here still with a third wild card spot, competing for a postseason spot there. A game and a half, or excuse me, a half a game ahead of the Diamondbacks. They lost Sandy Alcantara yesterday to injury. He's on the 15-day IL. And this is a team that's, has had some injuries, whether it be the pitching staff or whether it be the injury bug and the position players. Soler is also injured there, but they've been lucky enough to have guys like Josh Bell, Jake Berger, come in and fit right in and, make some noise offensively. But what do you think about the Marlins situation? Do you think they still hang around and get a wild card spot? Because a lot of people are saying like, oh, I mean, the Cubs are 3.5 games ahead of the third spot, but anything could happen. I know, but that last wild card spot between those teams of the Diamondbacks, Marlins, Reds, hell, even the Giants still, like as you said, they're 2.5 games back. It's going to go down to the wire as well. But what do you think about the Marlins' chances of still remaining in that third wild card spot, or even just getting the postseason in general?
I'm looking at their schedule right now, Saul, and even though they won the 3-game series they have currently going down in Miami with the Dodgers, and they seeking to go for a sweep later on this evening as we record this podcast, they got a tough schedule. And these injuries are coming at a bad time. And you talk
Mm-hmm.
about the loss of Sandy Alcantara, the reigning NL Cy Young Award winner. They lost Jorge Soler as well, who's placed on a 10-day IL, I believe, with like a hamstring or oblique injury or something like that. And he was one of their main power suppliers as far as home runs go prior to Josh Bell and Jake Berger taking over there. This is a team, as great as they've been playing, and they currently riding a 6-game winning streak. They gonna have to be some top dogs to get in. Because after they take on the Dodgers, they got to go out to Philadelphia. And that's one of the hottest teams in the National League. That's a divisional foe they got to knock down. They got 4 against the Brewers on the road. That 7-game series, that's the 7 games that's coming up after this evening against the Dodgers. That's gonna tell me a lot about this Miami ball club. I like the pitchers. I think they'll be able to survive just enough with the pitchers that they have, especially Yuri Perez, who they called back up from AAA, who's a sensational young talent. Braxton Garrett's been holding it down. I like what they've been doing, especially in the power department lately. You see Jazz Chisholm starting to heat up. He went 3 for 4 in the series opener against the LA Dodgers and hit a home run, stole a couple of bags. I gotta see it. But I like the way that this team plays, and I like the way that they compete. We know Luis Ariz is always going to be a tone setter in the leadoff spot, one in the order. But even though they never give up on games, you can never count them out based on the way they played this season. And Skip Schumacher's done a hell of a job there. Man, they got a tough schedule. The Phillies, Brewers, Braves, all coming up within the next week.
Yeah, that schedule is pretty nasty looking at it now. And but the way they're playing right now, and they could still take those games and see, they have definitely what it takes to do it. I mean, they're on currently a 6-game winning streak, so they're gonna keep
Right.
on doing it, especially them beating the Dodgers in a series, a big confidence boost. So yeah, they definitely have what it takes, but we'll see what they can if they can execute. And you mentioned with Lisa Rise, I mean, any lineup with him, I mean, yeah, they'll just be just fine when it comes to the hitting wise. And like I said, Jake Berger, he's been great since joining them. I mean, he's got an 8.99 OPS with them, 6 home runs. I mean, Josh Bell has 9 home runs with the Marlins. So in the offensive standpoint, I think they could survive without Soler right now, even though he's the team leader with 35 homers. But I think they'll be just fine for now. And when it comes to the pitching side, I am a little more worried. But as you mentioned, with the type of talent they have, the young guys, they definitely have. This is their chance to prove it. And even like a Jesus Luzardo, who like can kind of like, say, hey, look, Alcantara's down. I'll pick everybody up. Be like, because we've always known that Luzardo has a ace mentality.
I'm
So
glad you
that,
brought him up
yeah.
too, man, because that's a guy that me and a friend of mine have targeted as a
Mm-hmm.
potential White Sox guy, because we always talk about how they need left-handed starting arms. And I was watching him against Tampa Bay about a week ago, even though they lost that game in extras, where he performed very well. And he's a hell of a young talent in the league. It's all on the back end of that bullpen, if you ask me. If the back end of that bullpen can hold up and this offense continues to rake like they have, they're going to have a chance. I'm not counting Miami out. And Josh Bell, man, if you're a Cleveland Guardians fan, you got to be hurt, because this is what you got him to Cleveland for. And he ain't do that for you. He
Yep.
get to Miami, man. It's like it takes Josh Bell getting traded to start hitting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy to me. I like seeing him break out there and do exactly what they what they want him to do in Cleveland, and he's doing it all in Miami. And in a lineup that with Soler, I mean, damn, if everyone's healthy in the lineup, it's a scary lineup.
I
Like
know.
you go from Lisa Rise to Soler to even Brian De La Cruz, who's out there hitting 20 bombs. Like, you know, Berger, Bell, like, they have a scary lineup. So if they can just get healthy in time for the last, couple weeks of the season, you never know with this team, and I think they definitely have a shot. So it'll be interesting to see. And yeah, Jesus Luzardo is a guy that I'm surprised that the Oakland A's got rid of him to begin with.
Man.
So I think, yeah, and he's only 25, which is scary because he has all talent in the world to be an ace, in my opinion. So we'll see what happens there, and I think that would be I think honestly, you mentioned it. So now that you mentioned it, I feel like he'd fit just right within a White Sox uniform.
Yeah, of
If
course
that
he
happened,
would. They
right?
need all the lefty arms they could get to start rotation. The White Sox haven't had a solid left-handed arm since Rodon left,
Yep.
and that's something that they definitely got to target. And that's why when we were talking early on the show about guys like Derek Crochet
Mm-hmm.
being in the running for a starter, if he was, the fact that he's left-handed, it would actually help the rotation.
Yep, 100%. I think that would make him even more dangerous. So, yeah, we'll see what happens there. I know there's still plenty of playoff races that we'll talk about in the last few weeks of the season going into October. So can't wait for that. But I think it's a good place to wrap things up for this edition of the At Bat Podcast presented by War Media. I want to thank Gabe Wilkins as well for joining me this time around. Thank you for watching, and we'll see everybody next week.